The Toronto Blue Jays coming off an off day. Lot to talk about. Not too many games remaining on the schedule. What's the magic number? Can they get guys like Santander into the lineup in time to get him comfortable for the playoffs? Talk about it all today on Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As always, I'm Brayden Ewasko. He's Carter Fuerst. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Ewasko. Carter Fuerst, too, as well, on our main Twitter account at Locked On Jays. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, both at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out. You guys get all the content. I think we're closing in on like 3,400 of you guys now, which is insane. So hat tips to all of you. But yeah, you get your shorts, your podcasts, your live streams, the videos, and it's free. So you might as well hit the button. Lot to talk about today. Obviously, not a ton of games remaining on the schedule. What is the Blue Jays magic number? We'll get into all that. Santander, Trey Savage. Is there room to move these guys? We've had conversations, but time's ticking. Is there enough room to get these guys playing? We'll talk about it. Also, obviously, series preview that we'll get into in the third segment. But Carter, my man, schedule come. We'll go over the schedule here. It's not easy. There are not easy games on the schedule for the Blue Jays. And with the Rays playing well as of late, too, with that coming up, you got to be worried a little bit. But I guess I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the Rays whatsoever. Like that's a team in the rearview mirror. That's a team that's going to struggle to make the playoffs. Never mind fight for the division. So in terms of the AL East, it's the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Toronto Blue Jays. And in terms of schedule, when we look at these three teams, the Yankees clearly have the advantage here. But when we look at standings, Toronto Blue Jays up 2 games on the New York Yankees, but also hold the tiebreaker. And that's something that we need to talk about on this podcast, is the tiebreakers are going to be massive for the Toronto Blue Jays. Because looking at the Boston Red Sox, looking at the New York Yankees, and then I did the Texas Rangers as well, because that is the first team on the outside of the playoffs, the first team looking in on that third wildcard spot. So that is what the baseline I'm going to use for the Toronto Blue Jays and making the playoffs here. So looking at the Texas Rangers, the Toronto Blue Jays have beaten the Texas Rangers in the season series 4-2. They've beaten the New York Yankees already in their season series as well, 8-5. And they have won 7 games against the Boston Red Sox, and they have a 3-game series remaining. So at worst, they are going to win that series 7-6. Again, ideally, you win a couple of games against the Red Sox. That helps you in the grand scheme of things. But they hold the tiebreaker over the Texas Rangers, the New York Yankees, and the Boston Red Sox. So I'm going to go over these team schedules, at least the AL East 3 team schedules, and then we'll kind of, give our reactions and takes on that. See which team has the harder schedule, and maybe which team we have to be worried about looking in the review mirror as we continue down the stretch. But the Toronto Blue Jays are going into a Houston Astros series, and then they'll have the Baltimore Orioles, the Tampa Bay Rays for 4. Then you get the Kansas City Royals, the Boston Red Sox, and then the Tampa Bay Rays once again. So 4 out of 6 series are against a division opponent. So that is always something to take into account, especially when you're the Toronto Blue Jays and you struggle against the Orioles and the Tampa Bay Rays. But looking at the Yankees, again, 2 games back, they play the Detroit Tigers, so that will be a huge series. Hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays can win the series against the Astros and maybe gain a couple on the Yankees there. Then the Yankees have the Red Sox. Again, that'll be a series we'll have to look at. But then after that, it's the Twins, the Orioles for 4, the White Sox, and then the Orioles once again. If I just say the team, it's a 3-game series. I'm going to specify if it's a 4-game. Then with the Red Sox, they are 3.5 games back. I have them kind of written in as a win because Garrett Crochet is on the mound against the Athletics. We'll have to see what happens, but I think more likely than not, they will win that game. They are 3.5 games back as of right now. They play the Athletics, then the Yankees. Then they got the Athletics again, the Rays, the Jays, and then the Detroit Tigers. So a little bit of a tougher schedule there. But Brayden, for you, out of those, 2 teams with the Toronto Blue Jays, who has the easiest schedule, and which is the team that you're the most worried about between the Yankees and the Red Sox in terms of catching the Toronto Blue Jays for the rest of the season? Because on yesterday's episode, we talked about the playoff scenario. You were more scared of the Boston Red Sox. I was more scared of the New York Yankees. But in terms of catching the Toronto Blue Jays in the American League East with the schedules, which team are you the most afraid of?
Yeah, it's got to be the Yanks. I mean, they're the closest to you. They can. Uh, you can never write off the Yanks in a game where I think there are some situations with the Red Sox that, you just think, hey, they're not going to win. They're not going to sweep that series. The Yankees could go and win 5 in a row, 6 in a row, and not bat an eye. Where I don't think that's as much of the case with the Red Sox, as though I am more terrified, I think, of the Red Sox in the playoffs than I am of the Yankees, just because there are some Toronto Blue Jays players that just play exceptionally well when it comes to facing the Yankees, whereas it doesn't necessarily always happen with the Red Sox. That's more of a, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just something mental for me. But in a playoff race or in a regular season race to try to finish first in the AL East, first in the AL, the Yankees are going to be the team that's on your back. I think that schedule is manageable for them, way more than the Toronto Blue Jays is. We talk about, certain teams being a tough opponent, right? The Houston Astros is going to be a tough series, even though I think that team is not as good as what they've been playing as, with a lot of injury troubles that have sort of plagued them all season. They came out of it playing really well, really good baseball. So you got to give hat tips to them, and you got to understand that this is a team that wants to compete and can compete even through injuries. Obviously, you got the Orioles, you got the Rays, you got the Royals, and as much as I said that the Rays have been playing good baseball, they did just lose 3 in a row. They are on a 3-game slide. But any AL East team, Carter, which you touched on, is always a tough opponent for the Toronto Blue Jays. It doesn't matter if it's the Orioles, who aren't having a very good season. It doesn't matter if it's the Rays. It doesn't matter if it's the Yankees or the Red Sox. It's always a series that every AL East team tends to bring their best when they're playing the Toronto Blue Jays. So, you know what? I want to say that the Toronto Blue Jays I still have them winning, but I think as we continue on and the Yankees get, inch themselves closer and closer, I'm shaking in my boots a little bit over here.
Well, one thing you brought up about the Tampa Bay Rays, which is relevant in this conversation, is that when you were looking at the Rays before they went on this little bit of a run that they're on, these games probably weren't going to matter for the Tampa Bay Rays. They were going to be out of the playoffs. The Toronto Blue Jays, hopefully by that point, have the AL East already locked up. But now with them kind of making this little bit of a run here, these games might matter. They might be in a playoff race still at that point and going for a wild card spot. And at that point, they're not going to roll over and give these games away. They're going to be meaningful baseball games. So if they're meaningful for the Toronto Blue Jays as well, that could drastically impact the strength of their schedule and just who the Tampa Bay Rays are playing, how hard they're playing. Players that are still in the playoff hunt are traditionally going to play a little bit harder than teams that have been out of it or are out of the playoffs. Or teams that, again, like the Pirates that have been out of it for a long time. The Rays, still in the mix of things. So that's something that you have to consider as well. Like when you look at the Yankees and their last 10 games, the Orioles and White Sox are both going to be out of it at that point. There is something to be said about 7 games against the Orioles in, the last 10, and that being divisional rivals. I don't think they're just going to roll over for the New York Yankees either. So you got to hope that, you get helped out at a couple times throughout the schedule. But at this point, like the Toronto Blue Jays are making their own bed. They control their own destiny. They are up on the New York Yankees as of right now. They have that extra game to play with because of the tiebreaker, and they're in a pretty good spot. Like the schedule, they have a couple tough series because, like you said, there's a few teams that are on the schedule that play the Toronto Blue Jays hard. Like the Houston Astros, they got swept earlier this season by the Astros, so that's one tiebreaker that they wouldn't have in terms of a bye for that first round, surpassing that wild card series. But you are 4.5 games ahead of the Houston Astros. So I think at this point, you just got to focus on what you can control, focus on the teams in front of you. And that's how you're going to be successful. There's no point of, like scoreboard watching is fun and all, but as the Toronto Blue Jays, there's no point of them, relying on other teams to either have success or falter at specific times. Just focus and control what you can control. But one thing that I wanted to go over is the magic numbers for the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have 19 games left in their season. The New York Yankees having 19 as well. The Boston Red Sox, and I did the Houston Astros for this one because of that option for the bye of the wild card series. So the Houston Astros are in this one as well. So with 19 games left the rest of the way for the Toronto Blue Jays, I I did a couple baseline records. So I did one at 10-9. I did one at 12-7. And then I did one in the worst case scenario. Maybe not a worst case, can't get worse than this, but 8-11. Like going over the schedule, I guess we can kind of talk this out quickly. If you think the Toronto Blue Jays can do worse than 8-11 or better than 12-7, kind of going over their schedule here against the Astros. Well, I will write down a series loss. I don't know if that's necessarily like what's going to happen. But that's a good playout. That's a good team. Like we'll do teams over 500 just for this example, and we'll say that they're going to be series losses. So the Houston Astros would be a series loss here. The Baltimore Orioles would be a series win. That's 500 baseball. You play 500 baseball against the Rays. At that point, you would be 6-6, I believe. Then we'll say you split the Red Sox and the Royals series. You play 500 there, and then you'll give the win against the Rays. So that would take you to 10-9. Very realistic scenario for the Toronto Blue Jays here. So if they do go 10-9 for the rest of the season, this is what the New York Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rangers, and I have the Royals and Astros in this because those teams would all be important for the Toronto Blue Jays in the scenario. So the Jays go 10-9 the rest of the way. The Yankees have to go 13-6 to win the AL East. So that is a very good stretch, obviously. That has a series sweep in there as well. The Red Sox to take over the Toronto Blue Jays with that record, they have to go 14-4. The Houston Astros to take over the bye, they would have to go 14-4. If the Blue Jays go 10-9, the Rangers can't make the playoffs. It is mathematically impossible, and the Kansas City Royals are in this. Again, the only reason they are in this is if when the Toronto Blue Jays play the Royals, they would have to get swept by the Royals. They win one game. This isn't a possibility. But if the Toronto Blue Jays get swept by the Royals and the Royals go 19-0 and the Toronto Blue Jays go 10-9 in that stretch, then the Royals would jump over them. But again, you got to hope the Toronto Blue Jays can win a game. So if you go 10-9, you're in a pretty good spot is kind of what I'm getting at here. 13-6 is a tall order for the New York Yankees. And then if you go 12-7, like it's almost guaranteed pretty much to win that division. So the Toronto Blue Jays, like I said, in a good spot. Like they don't have to be absolutely unbelievable the rest of the season. Yes, you want to go into the postseason with some momentum, but it's not like the Toronto Blue Jays are in this insurmountable spot to stay ahead in the AL East. They can just kind of keep their head above water. You want them to play better, but if they can go just above 500, that's going to put them in a pretty good spot to be successful.
Yeah, and I think 12 and what would that be? 12-7, I guess, would be sort of your ideal, right? I think you go into that saying 12-7, great, that should get it done. Me personally, I think that 10-9 may be fine, but I think my target is 11 right now. I think that's where I'm sitting. If the Toronto Blue Jays can win 11 of their last 19 games, I think you've not only secured the AL East, but you've potentially probably secured the AL in general. So that's sort of the number that's in my head. Now, what will we see happen? Again, this could go a lot of different ways. We mentioned all the teams that the Toronto Blue Jays are playing. Some teams they struggle against, some teams they play very well against. So this number, I think it can be from one to the other. I think you could see a situation where the Blue Jays win 9. You could see situations where the Blue Jays win 13. It's going to be somewhere in that category, but I think 11 is a safe number, Carter.
Yeah, if they win 11 games, that puts them in a very good spot. Like the Yankees would have to win 14 games. They have to go 14-5. Like that's a tall order. I don't care who you're playing against. You look at every series ever, it seems like. The Tigers just lost a series to the White Sox, and the Yankees play the White Sox down the stretch. You got to assume that they'll probably lose one of those baseball games. When they play the Orioles for a 4-game set, like they're probably not going to win all 4. It's almost impossible to win a 4-game stretch. But unless you know that you're the Toronto Blue Jays against the New York Yankees, then you make it look pretty easy at sometimes. But it's baseball. Like crazy things happen. It's very hard to sweep a series. We've seen how hard it can be at times. Everything seemingly has to go perfectly. So like you said, if it's 10, great. If it's 11 or 12, that just increases the certainty with every single win. So just going into, again, those magic numbers, it should be 10 to make the postseason. Again, as long as you beat the Kansas City Royals. And then for the division, if you're wondering, still pretty far away from that, obviously, with the Yankees only being 2 games back. It is 16, so that's a combination of 16 Blue Jays wins and 16 Yankees losses. So in terms of the division, like we're still pretty far away from that. It's not locked up whatsoever. Who would have thought? Breaking news that you're up 2 games with 19 games left. You do not have that completely sealed up. But like I said, the Toronto Blue Jays with their schedule, I know there's some tough teams out there, but you're going to have to play tough teams in the playoffs. So this is the time to put up or shut up. This is the time to hopefully extend the lead over the New York Yankees, as they do have, 2 very tough series in the next 6 games. And then after that, it does get a little bit easier. This is the time for the Toronto Blue Jays to separate and the time to really just shut up the haters at this point, because what we've seen on Toronto Blue Jays media is a little bit of a shift recently. It's not this drastic, oh, this team's horrific and they have no shot whatsoever, but it's the kind of classic Toronto Blue Jays sports media around playoff time. When you look at the Maple Leafs, when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, not as much the Raptors. We'll stay on those two teams specifically. It's when the lights shine the brightest. Seems like these Toronto teams, they kind of falter. And the Toronto Blue Jays are in a spot now where they're going to have to prove that they're not going to falter when the moment gets big.
Yeah, again, as much regular season success as you want, if you can't get it done in the playoffs, people are going to have questions. They're going to, have assumptions based around your team. It is the lights getting too bright moment for some of these teams. And hopefully this Toronto Blue Jays team can sort of stamp that out, but we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a super interesting stretch. Obviously, this is where baseball season absolutely fires up. You're sitting glued to your TV watching every game. But in saying all of that, Carter, we've seen some weak points in this Toronto Blue Jays team. We've seen a little bit of a bounce back. We've seen how good this offense can be. But is there room for an Anthony Santander, a Trey Savage? We're going to break all of that down coming up before we hit the series preview. We'll be back after this. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees are the worst. To be honest with you, that's where my head goes for a spin. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price, plus all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. That's the best part. I can't stand when I go to a checkout, it's like $20 or $30 extra on top of what I'm paying. Game Time, the price you see right on the screen as you're going to click that ticket, that's what you're paying. Don't worry about it. And that's my favorite part about Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So, Carter, obviously, we talked a little bit of schedule. You have to, right? At this point of the year, that's the most important thing that everybody's eyes are going to be glued to. Magic number, absolutely. I've seen a lot of tweets based on that. Some people were saying 12, some people were saying 10, some people were saying 11. Some people were being extra cautious and saying 13. So there's a lot of numbers out there. It's up to you guys to make your own, to be honest with you. It's what you think and how much faith you have in not only this Toronto Blue Jays team, but the teams that are chasing them, right? So you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. I said 11, so bookmark the 11. Carter said 10, bookmark the 10. And hopefully this Toronto Blue Jays team can pull it away. But, saying all of that, the Toronto Blue Jays may get some reinforcements, Carter. And I guess we'll start with the big dog, talk about him, Anthony Santander, and his possible return to the Toronto Blue Jays.
We've been hearing about this, starting to heat up a little bit over the last month or so. And I'm going to start this off from a tweet from Arden Zwelling. I got 3 of them from Zwelling. So all 3 of the tweets that I cover are going to be from Arden Zwelling. But this one is just about what Santander thought this initial injury was going to be about. So Anthony Santander caught up with Zwelling before the weekend series against the Yankees. And he says the shoulder injury turned out to be much worse than he expected it to be when he initially went on the IL. Well, me as well, Santander, me as well. But he thought he'd only be out for 3 to 4 weeks, and now he has missed over 3 months. So I guess it was just as much of a surprise to Anthony Santander as it was to us, where this guy's not even going on the IL, and then all of a sudden he's missed 3 months of baseball. And now we are contemplating whether he or not he will return just before the playoffs. So very interesting updates there. And I'll get all the information out of the way here, and then we can kind of discuss on what his role is going to be, and then just the likelihood of him actually having a role with the Toronto Blue Jays. So Santander feels that playing through discomfort for 2 to 3 weeks after suffering the injury in early May made his recovery more challenging. Again, who would have thought? A lot of this just makes sense, and kind of what we were talking about at this time as well. Said that shoulder was really, really bad. I had a lot of inflammation. It's tough to start to swing when there's so much inflammation. And then this is another tidbit here. So there's a lot of information to respond to, and this brings up another talking point. But Santander says the shoulder is not 100% yet to swing from the right side, but the left-handed side is really good. So he hopes that he'll get his right-handed swing strong enough to compete by Tuesday, that he could begin a rehab assignment with AAA Buffalo by that Tuesday. So again, ton to talk about with that recovery time. Him saying that the swing is not 100% from the right side, but the left-handed side is good. So, and I guess we'll start with this. I'll kind of work backwards. We'll start with the thing I just said, is that in the event, let's say Anthony Santander cannot get the swing calibrated from the right side, there's too much shoulder pain. Would you be comfortable with Anthony Santander scrapping the switch hitting and just hitting from the left side in the last bit of the regular season and the playoffs? Or would you rather have him in the pitch hitting scenario where he's just hitting against right-handers, which he has been doing his entire career? Because are you comfortable with him just all of a sudden flipping and if he's facing a lefty, staying on that left-handed side when he's not used to seeing a pitch from that arm angle? And with like, there's a bunch of differences from seeing the ball when you're a left-handed hitter from the left or the right side. So would you be comfortable with Anthony Santander just exclusively hitting from the left side, or would you rather him do one of the other options I stated?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. That sounds horrible. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
so Carter, no full-time Anthony Santander from the left side.
No.
We're not going to see that from Brady Wasko.
No, that's ridiculous. You can't go from being a switch hitter to all of a sudden within being injured and just being like, well, no, I'll just be a lefty for the rest of the season. No, that's not how that works. You have not seen a lefty-lefty matchup for as long as he's been a switch hitter. So there's absolutely no reason to believe that he is going to succeed that way. If that is the case, and don't get me wrong, a lot of the times you're going to just be facing righties, like for the majority of it. Like that's the primary side for a lot of these pitchers is a right-handed pitcher. So as a lefty, okay, you may succeed. But in saying all of that as well, I don't know what the best option is, because I don't know that I'd feel comfortable starting Santander if he can only swing solidly from one side of the plate at this point. Because then if they do throw in a lefty, are you just sacrificing it out? Are you swapping him out? I think at this point, he becomes a bat off the bench in a situation that you need a left-handed hitter. And I think in a big situation, you could absolutely do that. But this does not make me feel, again, I wasn't even sure if I was 100% confident in him coming back and having success. I wasn't even sure if he was going to make it back by the end of the season. So now to hear that he's not going to be 100%, I don't know why you wouldn't just roll with guys that are having success up to this point. And yes, it's a different brand of baseball. You don't get the pop from the plate, but those guys can actually swing a bat. So I think that's the way to go. This just makes me very upset because I don't know why you would activate this guy if he's not at 100%, keep him on the IL. And sucks to suck if he can't swing a bat, or at least from the one side, and he's going to be a half useless player. This is what I was worried about, Carter. This is exactly what my worry was, that he was not going to come back 100%, and they were going to try to shoehorn him in, and then they're going to have to make a decision when it comes to playoff time about how much you play this guy, how much do you not. This is just, I don't think this is a good situation.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Like, it does say that he is hoping to be back by Tuesday and hopes that he's back to 100%. But if you're like Anthony Santander at this point in your career, like, you're probably going to say that you're close, if not 100%, and you're going to try to get back as soon as possible. Like, you want to play for this team, especially in a playoff run. Yep. So there is probably some injury concern that you're going to have, and you got to assume that Anthony Santander, if he does come back, if it's in this long in the recovery time, like, I don't think he's just magically all of a sudden going to be cured just before the playoffs. So I kind of get where you're coming from, is that he's probably going to have some injury concern. And even if he does come back, there is still going to be those rumors and, those theories about, is the shoulder fully 100% healthy? And I think a lot of that will stem from, if he does come back, how productive is he? If he comes back and he has an 850 OPS, a lot of people aren't going to care if the shoulder is healthy or not, because they're seeing the production. But if he comes back and you see the Anthony Santander we saw throughout the first 2 months of the season, then the leash is going to be shorter than it ever has been. I think that's kind of the way you have to treat Anthony Santander, is that if he is somehow healthy enough to come back and be that everyday player that you kind of expected him to be this season, if it's not going well whatsoever, you have other guys, like you said, like David Schneider, Nathan Lucas, maybe some guys that don't have as high of upsides, but some guys that you have seen be productive in those roles this entire season. So it's not like we're relying on Anthony Santander to come back and be like this massive saving grace for the Toronto Blue Jays, which takes me into one of my other points I'm quickly going to go over as well, is that the Toronto Blue Jays offense has been ridiculous since the All-Star break, so you don't need to rush Anthony Santander back. I have 7 guys. I'm pretty sure I got everyone. I did a double check, so I shouldn't have skipped over everyone. But there are 7 players in the Toronto Blue Jays since the All-Star break that have an OPS over 800, and the average OPS is just under 710 throughout the major leagues. So George Springer has a 1,161 OPS since the All-Star break. Vladdy's at a 1,053. Varsho 991. Bichette 989. David Schneider 864. Alejandro Kirk 834. And Ty France is at an 808 as well. That's 7 guys right there, way above league average. Like, it's not even sniffing the league average. So with Anthony Santander, yes, you would love to have that power bat back, especially from the left-handed side. That switch hitter ability is so nice for the Toronto Blue Jays to have. And, having a guy that just hit 44 home runs would be very nice for this team, especially come playoff time. We know how important the long ball is. But this isn't like Anthony Santander is not in dire need. Like, this isn't like an emergency situation where this has to happen. If it can happen and he can be productive, for sure. But there's no need to completely rush him back, throw him into the fire, and then have it kind of burst into flames right in front of your face.
To me, he needs 15 games. And I think if you
got 19 games left in the regular season right now. So Tuesday, you'd have a couple of minor league games, but the minor league season ends pretty quickly as well here.
That's what I mean. He needs 15 games. And if you can't get 15 games, I don't know how much stock you're putting into anything you see. That's the problem. And to go right into the fire, into playoff baseball, just seems wild to me. I think this is a crazy situation, and one that obviously the Blue Jays have to exercise. If you can get a fairly healthy Anthony Santander who can come out and be a great piece, then absolutely you got to try it. But there also gets to a point where, hey, too little, too late a little bit here, because you're not going to see enough batter or pitchers before you jump into the playoffs, into full swing mode here. We need everybody at the best they can possibly be. So yeah, it's a tight window. And you said it, 19 games left. I said he needs 15. Well, get in, get ready to play. If you're coming up and you're wanting to be a part of this squad here, be ready, because you need to be in. You need to get at bats. That's just where this is. And don't get me wrong, Carter, I have said multiple times that eventually I think switch hitting is going to be a thing of the past. That was one of my things that eventually I could see making its way out of baseball. But you can't just all of a sudden stop being a switch hitter. So yeah, it's concerning, but if you can get Anthony Santander at 95%, 90%, I think you're more than happy with that. And if he has to just hit lefties and be a bat off the bench, well, it's a pretty darn good bat off the bench. So there you go.
Well, at least he has the potential to be a pretty darn good bat off the bench. Yeah, the switch hitting take that you have is something that we won't open that can of worms today, is what I'll say. But I'll say I necessarily agree with Brayden on that take. But hey, that's the fun of the podcast. We get to argue amongst ourselves a little bit. We get to have people, get their 2 cents into it as well. It's not just he said, she said, and me and Brayden just arguing one-on-one. We do get a little bit of insight, at least some accountability from the people on the outside here as well. So you did want to talk about Trey Savage. I don't know. You said you had something specific, so I'll kind of throw it over to you for this segment. But I know exactly, I haven't faltered on this Trey Savage thing. Yep. But I'll throw it over to you if you have anything to add for the people.
No, and it just all goes back to the fact that we're running out of games here. And this is something that we've talked about before and that I wanted to revisit, because if you want to get Trey Savage in here, a guy that's looked very good, you got to give him a shot here. And because if he can be a productive piece again on a playoff roster coming out of the bullpen, give him a shot. I don't know what's stopping them from, hey, come in, throw a couple games. We'll see what you got at the major league level. Get your feet wet. Let's see what you got. If you can help us out when it comes to the postseason, awesome. But you got to make this move soon, because, again, going back to the last episode when we talked about this, I said it then. This move has to come soon. So I want to see it. Give the kid a chance. See if he can be a productive member of this ball club. That's where I'm at. I just wanted to make sure that we keep this kid's name at sort of the top of the list right now. Hey, can he come in and do something? Because this bullpen has had its struggles. I don't know. Where are you still on that same boat?
Yeah, for the first 2 days when this was a discussion when Trey Savage got called up to AAA Buffalo, I was on the fence of, don't ruin the development. How is that going to work? You're rushing him a little bit too much. But then now I'm on the fence of, I look at how good the Toronto Blue Jays are. If he's good enough and he forces your hand to pull him up and get him to play with the Toronto Blue Jays, because he's going to give you the best shot of, really giving this thing a shot and making a deep playoff run, absolutely. But I'm also on the same fence of like, this is something that like what's being asked of Trey Savage is not something he's ever done in his career whatsoever. This is a starting pitcher that people are asking to be a high leverage bullpen arm, which is a whole lot different than obviously coming out at the start of a baseball game. And not even going to mention, that being a playoff series, that being a very good lineup opposed to you, because bad teams don't make the playoffs. You're going to be pitching against good lineups. So I think the expectation is just absolutely ridiculous. I think the likelihood of this happening is just at an all-time low. So this is where I've been at for probably the last month or so now, is that with Trey Savage, if he's absolutely lights out and he's going, 4 innings, 5 innings, whatever, and it's the greatest thing we've ever seen on turf, and he forces the Jays hand, like, yes, you got to get him in there immediately. You don't want to, randomly throw him in there for a 1 inning appearance, or even if you want to just pull him up for a relief appearance, like that you don't want to just throw him into the fire and make his first game be in the playoffs. You want to get his feet wet a little bit. But I just think that it's a very unreasonable expectation to expect Trey Savage to come up for this baseball team and pitch at least in a high leverage situation. Like Eric Lauer's in a long relief situation right now, and he's not even really pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays anymore. So is there really a spot for Trey Savage to come in and pitch in that long relief role, to pitch in that high leverage role? I just think you're kind of setting him up for failure if that's what that's what you are trying to do with Trey Savage this year.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that we're at the point now where who gives you the best option to win? Is it Trey Savage? I don't know, right? I'm not in there looking
at find out if it is or not.
That's right. Yeah, I'm at the point where there's only a few games remaining. Give the guy a shot. Pull him up for a game. And you know what? If he blows up, send him right back down. Who cares? Let the kid buzz. Let him try it. Get his feet wet. I don't think he'd be opposed to coming in and being with the MLB squad. Like, I think this is just a great opportunity for a kid. Yes, it could go bad, but what's more important? Your MLB team potentially winning a World Series, or one kid's development? And I'm always on the train of, make sure these guys get their development. But I'm sort of getting to the point now where it's like, yeah, that's such a thing when your team sucks and your team is terrible. Don't wreck these kids. Let them go. Let them work everything out, their progressions, all that. But when your team is good and you have one of the top prospects in the MLB, why not? Give him a chance. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
But you said, like, who's it going to hurt pulling it up Trey Savage, like just his development? What about all those Buffalo Bisons fans that are hoping for a championship?
Yeah,
with
maybe
Trey Savage at the helm. Like, you take him off the team, and maybe you're letting the entire fan base down. Like, obviously, Toronto Blue Jays fans would care more about their AAA affiliate winning a championship. I don't even know what it's called in AAA.
Put the banner in the rafters, Carter. Put the banner in the rafters.
Right up there with the wild card banner. AAA champions. Let's run it. Hey, the Vancouver Canucks, for Canucks fans, Abbotsford won a championship, and I don't think we've talked about it once because, who cares, unfortunately, about that? But yeah, again, like, it would just be if he's if he's that good and he can come up for your team and you think he can be effective. At this point, do it, but I just think it's very unlikely that they're even going to do that if the scenario was fall in the perfect place.
It's getting to the point and now where I'm losing faith that anything's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
I wasn't even on board with it originally. Like, I was on the same fence that you were. We were both saying, and then we started to come around, and now it's getting 19 games left. Probably not.
Brayden Fisher anyway. That's all you need.
Brayden
Fisher
dog.
Just send him out there for the whole 3 innings. You just go starter Brayden Fisher, 3 innings.
Yep. I like it too. Just let that guy go. As long as it's not like a 10-1 ball game.
Yeah, it's got to be within 3 runs. It's got to be that save situation.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot. We finally figured it out for Brayden Fisher. We figured it out with the bullpen, or with 2 weeks left in the season. Brayden Fisher, just every single start. Copy and paste, Brayden Fisher. But
he will not have an arm. He will not have an arm after this year, but that's fine.
Yeah, he'll be like your brother's arm after we got the blitz ball out for half an hour. He's trying to throw as hard as he can because he hasn't thrown hard in years. And then, why does my shoulder hurt before our slow pitch playoff weekend? But that is besides the point. There's some bigger things obviously going on in Toronto Blue Jays land. A big series against the Houston Astros. We talked about that magic number just in terms of the playoffs. We talked about how significant the bye is for the wild card. You beat the Houston Astros in a series. You widen that gap. That is just one fish that you have taken care of. And one mini stressful reliever that I guess could help out Toronto Blue Jays fans. But there's obviously bigger pictures or fish, even than that, to fry in the American League. But time more we want to get into, and we are going to preview a Toronto Blue Jays and Houston Astros series after this short break. Today's episode is sponsored by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks for properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for the people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I did this with my budgeting as well. As soon as I moved in the city, I realized that I know groceries are expensive, but eating out is way more expensive. And I realized that with the help of Monarch Money, that with my budgeting, it was not in my feasible accounts that I could eat out as much as I was eating out. So Monarch Money helped me budget a ton and save a ton of money without eating fast food and spending it more on groceries, saving money in that sense. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks, and you can use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB.
So, Carter, continuing on, you know what? I don't bring this out too often, but this is where I'm at. Must-win series. Brayden Ewasko.
I think that's the first one of the year. There's 19 games left. You got 3 or 6 series left. And Brayden Ewasko, first must-win of the series of the year. Not even the New York Yankees series. This guy says must-win series. It's a Houston Astros one from the top row.
Yeah, you know what? I just think you can't drop another series loss here. And I think the New York Yankees, because they did already have the tiebreaker over them. I think that was a big component going into me not calling that a must-win series. It is the Yankees. I think there was going to be a point this season where you don't, win a series against them. The Houston Astros right now, I think just for momentum-wise, for getting back on track, I think a series win here goes a very, very long way. So, yeah, must-win series for me.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. I think this, again, all these series are important now, and against American League teams are even that much more important. The rest of the Toronto Blue Jays series are going to be against American League teams. So obviously all very important. A lot of division games in there as well. And it's one of those things that don't get swept in the Houston Astros sense of things, but now you don't have a lot of breathing room in terms of the New York Yankees. They play the Detroit Tigers this week. Doesn't really matter who wins that series, I guess. You probably prefer the Tigers to win it 2-1 in terms of the American League, because for me at least, the difference between 1 and 2, not that much. Difference between winning and losing the American League East, that is a big factor, and that's a big momentum swing, that could affect this team going into the postseason. Just in terms of a confidence thing, if you've been in first in the American League this entire time, and then all of a sudden it kind of falls through your fingers, and now you have to play in a wild card series, which they should still be expecting to. At this point, they're not far enough ahead where they should be expecting a bye. But we've talked immensely about how much that would be beneficial to this Toronto Blue Jays ball club. So I think just in terms of keeping ahead of the New York Yankees and at least setting yourself up for the most amount of success, you want to beat the Houston Astros here, especially when you lost to them in a series sweep earlier on in the season. So just in terms of that confidence, again, showing that you can beat the Houston Astros, because you might have to play them at some point in the playoffs. So yeah, maybe I'm putting a little bit more emphasis on this series than I was on some of the series previously, because this would be a big one to win in terms of multiple facets for this Toronto Blue Jays team: pitching, bullpen, offensively, and then in terms of scoreboard watching as well. But I do have the pitching matchups here, so I'll quickly go over them. First game, you have Luis Garcia versus Jose Berrios. Jose Berrios kind of looking to get back on track here. Jason Alexander versus Shane Bieber in the second game of the series. And then you got Christian Javier versus Kevin Gausman. An exciting one there. 2 juggernauts will have that playoff baseball feel. So you say that this is a must-win series. So does that mean you're expecting a must-win, or you're expecting a win in this series? Or are you going 1-2, 2-1, maybe a 3-0? Where are you at with the Toronto Blue Jays here?
No, I'm giving them the series win. And I'm sort of doing this on the back end here. I think they lose the first one and then they rally back, sort of like what happened in the Yankee series, where first game, you're like, oh my goodness, in reverse, right? As Yankees fans, you're probably thinking, oh, what are the chances that we win the next 2 games? I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with the Toronto Blue Jays. They dropped that first one, but then they come back and clean it up in the last 2. And I'm just really excited to see Shane Bieber again. And sort of, he had a little bit of a tough inning last game. Can he now come back out of that and get back to doing his thing like he did in the innings following that sort of blow up inning there that he had? So, yeah, a couple big things I'm watching for. Again, what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can continue to do, I think, is massive for what he can bring into the playoffs. So just throughout the last 19-game stretch, what can Vladdy bring to the table? And then obviously Bo Bichette, does he miss one more game? Is he fully back? What's going to happen with him? That's a huge component for this team with how good he's been. Now Trey Turner is injured as well. So Bo Bichette looking to keep a tight hold on the hits leader in the MLB.
He's up 2 right now, so hopefully he can continue on with that. That's going to be a massive incentive for him during contract talks, so drive that price up just a little bit more. He's deserving of it, but doesn't bode necessarily in the Toronto Blue Jays' favor. For me, this is a series that they calm before the storm. I think this is going to get slightly worse than it gets better before it gets better. I think they are going to win the Shane Bieber start, but I think they lose 2 out of 3 here. I think a lot of people start panicking about this Toronto Blue Jays ball club. Maybe it's only a 1-game lead on the New York Yankees. I think the Yankees are going to lose to the Detroit Tigers. I know the Tigers haven't been playing that good of baseball, and the Yankees have been playing good. I think it starts to falter a little bit for them. But I think, like I said, the calm before the storm, so I think they're going to lose this Astros series. But I think they go on a little bit of a run, and maybe people won't love that because you play a lot of teams that are in the playoffs after this. Like you only have the Boston Red Sox that remain in the playoffs after this stretch, and maybe what the Tampa Bay Rays do. And the Royals, we'll have to see. Maybe they do somehow jump into there at some point. But that's where I'm at. I think it's going to go just a little bit worse before it gets better, and the Toronto Blue Jays do go on a massive run and ultimately do take the American League East. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they sweep the Houston Astros, gain some games on the New York Yankees. And then the last week of baseball, we can kind of just relax, really contemplate who's going to be the playoff starters after that bye and that we get in the wild card round. And we just get to watch some stress-free wild card baseball with the Toronto Blue Jays remaining in the playoffs.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice, eh? Just not having to, pull my hair out sitting on the couch watching with you or being... don't get me wrong. I'd love to go to Toronto Blue Jays playoff baseball, but I'm really hoping I don't have to sit there at a wild card game, trying to slam 19 beers and 17 hot dogs just to keep my stress levels down. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. Should be a lot of fun.
All that's going to happen for you is you're going to have 15 beers and your body's not going to know if you're running 15 kilometers or if you're, watching a Toronto Blue Jays playoff game. And I think the beers, if anything, are just going to add to the experience in terms of like what is happening to my body right now. I have so much foreign alcohol and then just stress and adrenaline coursing throughout my veins. Right? That's the experience of the Toronto Blue Jays fan.
Listen, that's an athlete's workout right there. Trick your body into believing what's exercise and what's just pure stress.
Is Brayden watching a Blue Jays game or did he see a grizzly bear in front of his face? Nobody will ever know.
Exactly. No, it's a great time of year. Obviously, lots to come. Vikings. I'm gonna turn that game on in about 30 seconds. Soon as we're done recording here. Hopefully, when you guys are watching this, that you can celebrate a Vikings win with me. Even though probably a lot of you aren't Vikings fans, but I am. So there we go. Big Monday nighter. We'll see what happens. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Lots more to come, and a massive series. And what I say, a must-win series. Carter, my man, anything before we kick out of here for the day?
No, just going to enjoy some NFL football, and hopefully Aaron Jones is held under 15 fantasy points, and I can celebrate that over my roommate. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.